All right, welcome to the Delivered podcast by Cardagraph. We're super excited to jump in today and have a great conversation. Today, we're actually talking with the co-founding team of Cardagraph. So we have myself, Bentley Wilson, CEO at Cardagraph. We have Spencer Jack, our CRO and head of revenue, and Bart Palmer, our CTO, and he's over our engineering and product. So super excited to jump in today. We're going to talk kind of why we're excited about product delivery, why we're working on this problem and working to solve the problem for our customers. Let's just jump in. Guys, how we doing?
Great. I'm excited. I'm excited to get my voice out there and get my opinions in everyone's face.
Awesome. Bart, how are you doing?
It sounds like Spencer. That's good. That's good. I just want to bring sanity to the world, and this is a good step.
Totally. Yeah. That's such an interesting. I know you joke, but that's such an interesting way to put it, because so often, we are talking to customers or people who are excited about solving this problem in their organization, and it feels like that, right? Like it feels like they're going a little crazy, and everyone's going a little crazy, and they're getting on each other's case, and they're playing the blame game, and we're over here kind of feeling like we have a really solid solution to help calm those rough seas. And sometimes it almost feels like, hey, it's so simple. Like Bart, you and I, when we're building product, I feel like often, you or I will say, it's so simple, like the solution's here. And I don't know, it's just such a funny thing. And honestly, I feel like most widespread or really effective solutions actually come from a simple place. It's often, the solution to complexity is often simplicity. And I know that sounds crazy, but I feel like that's really what we've done here, honestly, is we've distilled the problem down. We've really analyzed it. I don't know. How do you look at that? How do you look at, because sometimes maybe there's the critique. It's like, is it really that simple? But it is, isn't it? I mean, what do you think?
Well, of course it's that simple. No, I'm just kidding. It's never exactly as simple as you'd hope it is. What's interesting is I remember back when I was first learning Agile and Scrum and going, wait, what's a story point? It's all of these things into one thing, and trying to wrap my head around that. And coming from a research and engineering background, I was like, how do you have one number that represents three things? That's just not okay. Well, okay, I'll play the game. So I played the game for a few years, and in teams and things like that, I was watching people use story points relatively well, and a story point means different things. But then there are layers that you have to add on to it when you've got projects that are really big and have a lot of story points or a lot of moving parts. And so the tendency when you don't have really simple to understand data is to add more layers to hide the complexity, but then that just adds more complexity and layers of additional complexity. So what we've done, and the cool solution here, is we've come up from a bird's eye view and looked at it from a product side, from a high level. What is really going on? What are the metrics that can actually show progress, and then how can we forecast that progress given your history? It really does come down to that kind of simplicity, that simple solution, as long as you've got simple to understand data behind it.
Totally. And yeah, I remember when you first joined, we had gotten to a certain point as far as these concepts, but the specific, I guess, data points we needed to be, using to solve the problem, we were still kind of, and really it was led by me without a formal data science background like you have. But it was, we were experimenting with different data points, trying to figure out what was a good, predictor of kind of timeline and things like that. And, I talk about this a lot, but really what it is it doesn't matter. It's just whatever data gets created most reliably and gets created as part of an engineer's workflow already, right? And I think that's such an important point, and really a novel thing that we do or think about is we're not asking engineers to do something extra that doesn't actually lead to progress, right? We're not asking them to go and sign into some software and report something, or clock in, clock out, or even create story points, right? Or estimate all these different tasks. We're just saying, hey, just do your work and check it off, essentially, right? Just say, hey, I got this done. It's stuff they already do. And I think that's so important, right? I always make the joke, right? Like if every time an engineer made incremental progress, they tweeted something or sent a Slack, we would integrate with those tools, or those things, and track tweets, right? If it was consistent and reliable, and they did that every time they made progress, that's what we track, right? So it's really about where's the reliable data, and the fact of the matter is as far as understanding engineering capacity and our behaviors and things like that, story points just really are tough, because like you said, they mean multiple things sometimes. They're not translatable, if I can say that, across teams, or even across from engineer to engineer. Mm-hmm. And so it's really tough to use that to create some sense of predictability and to be able to plan based on that. But I want to back up just a little bit and ask you guys, I'll share mine as well, but I'll let you guys go first. Why is this such an important problem? Why are you working on this problem, right? I really want to hear that. Spencer, do you want to kind of start off and share why are you even at Cardagraph? Why are you working on this problem?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a fun, we're almost 5 years deep into this, and it's really good times here at Cardagraph right now. And it's because we're solving such a massive problem for the entirety of the company, right? Oftentimes people will like to say, okay, like, is this a DevOps tool? Is this a road mapping tool? Trying to kind of fit us in these boxes that they're already very familiar with, right? The problem is those boxes aren't solving the biggest problem that is unsolved in business, and that's being able to communicate expectations and meet those expectations, especially on the development and product side. And myself as the revenue leader and the side that relies on Bart and his team pushing stuff out at the right time, and myself being able to sell the product or the feature at the right time is vital, so that we're able to forecast our sales, we're able to forecast the right revenue numbers and understand how that affects the company as a whole. And so it's, for me, it's really just the biggest unsolved problem that it has been kind of just accepted. It's been accepted as unsolvable, right? Because there's all these different things like, story pointing and capacity planning using time tracking, or things like that, where they've been trying to solve this, right? Since the 90s or before. And the fact that we were able to, you guys especially were able to make this, so simple. It's great for me because I'm able to relate to these people because I'm their first point of contact at Cardagraph. And it just seems so obvious that, why are you planning your roadmap without understanding capacity? Do you know when you have 100% capacity, if ever? Do you know how much resources each thing takes? You're just kind of making things up. And so being able to solve that problem of making things up where people like me are relying on an accurate roadmap is just huge for me.
Totally. Yeah, I love that. And it's so interesting because a lot of the pain that we solve, that Cardagraph solves, really comes from sales and go-to-market, right? Not all of it, but a lot of it. And the reason I say that is because product teams, VP products, CTOs, they are talking with revenue leaders every day or every week, right? Or they, it's often that we're on a sales call. At least I've been on calls where, I say, hey, you're probably hearing from your go-to-market team that, hey, when's this going to be done? When's this going to be done? I have customers waiting. Customers already signed based on the promises I made because you told me it was going to be done, right? And oftentimes they'll say, yeah, I have 3 of those in my inbox right now.
And what's interesting about that is exactly what you said. We come across this all the time. A lot of these teams are going in and saying now, oh, we don't do timelines. Like, we just don't do them. We just deliver when we're going to deliver. We've accepted that this is unsolvable. we told go to market, we told finance, we told CX, hey, sorry, we're just going to ship when we can ship, because they were putting these timelines on things, these arbitrary timelines that they're taking from the roadmap that the PMs are giving to tech leaders, and they're getting held to them, right? And tech is overwhelmed. They're like, hey, we can't work at 300% capacity. Like, who planned this? Who approved that this would be done, right? And so now, instead of the business, the sales and go to market coming with pitchforks into engineering, they're just saying, hey, you'll get it when you get it. And it's become that bad of a problem that's the solution people are taking.
Totally. I think you hit on such an important point, because when it's not that it's a bad thing for engineering to estimate, right, and say, I think it'll take about this, right? That helps with trade-off conversations. But when we're using that as hard data or as a deadline, right? There's things that engineers say about that it's like, hey, an estimate is not a commitment, right? And it should be that way. An estimate should not be a commitment, because the problem you just outlined, I think it's created because engineers will say, yeah, this, I think about that much time, that much time. And before they know it, they've committed to 300% of their actual capacity without realizing it, right? And so that's why it's so important, and as we all know this, it's so important to use data to say, what is our actual capacity, right? And what do we actually have room for with what else is in flight right now? I think it's like we kicked off with, right? It's a simple concept, right? And it has huge implications of getting it wrong, but because of that, and because of there not really being a great solution, people have just given up, and that's pretty tough. Bart, what about you? Why are you working on this problem? Why, Bart joined us a couple years after Spencer and I first jumped off and decided to try to start this thing. Bart, why did you join Cardagraph, and why are you working on it today?
The pain. The pain that this causes, you said it earlier, the unhappiness, the friction between everybody in the company. Having been not on the wait for it, been defending from pitchforks and firebrands and stuff coming after people. And the way you just put it about capacity, and all of a sudden you hadn't realized, but you all of a sudden committed to 300% capacity for a time. Without getting political, it just reminds me of the debt ceiling. We hit the debt ceiling, we just blow right through it. It's just, it's something that we think is unsolvable, but really there's a simple solution. So the defensibility, let me start with this. I think engineering, they can feel their capacity, they have a feel for it, but no good way to talk about it. And because how do you take all of this complexity and distill it down to one number, which is, capacity? And so we've been able to do that. It's not exactly perfect, right? It's still a forecast, and it's still going to be off, but it's going to be the tightest fit with real data that you're going to find out there. And it's going to keep improving. I'm really excited about as we keep going, and we apply new algorithms, and we find new data that's solid, that can predict as time goes on. But the ability to say, this is our capacity, we have filled it up, and that everybody can understand that because it's so simple to talk about. And in the past, well, today, without Cardagraph, engineering doesn't want to look bad, and they also don't want to dash the hopes and dreams of sales and marketing or the customers. And so I think we hold tight, and I've realized this since I started at Cardagraph. I was thinking, wow, I have that tendency. I don't want to disclose that I'm behind, because, well, if I stay up all night here and I work these weekends and I work at night, I'll catch up and everything will be okay. And then about 2 weeks or a week or a day before it's supposed to ship, I'm going, well, never mind. It's still a week out. And then at that point, I'm burned out. My team's burned out. We're all trying to figure out how to get this thing out. And it's like, oh, we just can't deliver on that time. So having the capacity there in front in the planning stage helps solve that. And then also being able to track it, because Cardagraph doesn't just show your capacity, it shows how things are trending towards the expected time to get done, and if that expected time moves. So you see it before I can hide it. And while that's a little scary for technology, for the engineering, it's actually a huge relief, because now I don't have to break the bad news. You see it happening. And without like throwing anybody under the bus, we can start having that conversation. And partially it's because, you know, one-offs come in, or we get interrupted, or we get the old CEO swoop and poop, which happens even in Cardagraph. and it's great. We have all the love for it, you know, but things get pushed back because of that. And when you can document it, when you can see where the capacity went, then you can understand where it needs to go in order to complete things on time. So those problems are the things that I've always seen with software development, and just the time and the energy wasted in estimations and re-estimating, and we're going to change that, re-estimate, where you don't need to re-estimate every change, except for will it add a few tickets or a lot of tickets, or will it reduce the number of tickets? That's really all you have to ask. And then from there, it should be fairly simple to calculate what the effect is. And that's where we are. But if you don't have Cardagraph, you're going to be just scratching your head. You're going to be doing the same old thing, which, if I remember right, is it Einstein's definition of insanity?
Yeah.
Keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results.
Yeah.
I've got a great joke about that, but that will save that for another time.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. There's two things that came to my mind as you were talking, kind of the value you get from having this kind of data from an engineering perspective, right? And the two things that popped in my head were, one, the rest of the business or other key stakeholders are able to see, or you're able to communicate to those stakeholders that you're over capacity or at capacity, right? Like that's maybe one of the awesomest things. And you said the word, we use this word all the time, but defensibility, right? Defensibility for engineering teams. They're able to say, look, we feel over capacity. Like you said, they can feel that, but it's really hard to communicate. Well, now if you have an interface that says, hey, here's where we're usually at, or here's about what we usually ship, and we're currently planning, 25+% over that, we probably need to rethink things, right? Or you can even see, hey, we've been running hot. We've been running over our average capacity for 6 weeks, or whatever it is. And it's bringing our average capacity up, but we're running hot. We're going to get burnt out, or we are burnt out. And so that's one huge benefit. The second benefit, like you said, is you don't have to be the bearer of bad news. Everyone can be on the same page, right? If something's getting behind, or other kind of last second projects or tasks have popped in, or a bug fix that blew everything up or whatever needs to be addressed and pushes other things to be later, everyone can see that happen in the data, right? In Cardagraph, you're able to log in and literally see that easily, that, okay, something else popped up. It took a bunch of our capacity for 3 weeks. And obviously we're not going to hit those timelines, right? Where today, a VP of sales has no idea that even happens, or at least has no idea, if they do, or if they are aware of some bug fix that everyone had to pay attention to or spend time on, they have no idea how it impacts everything else, right? Often they'll still kind of expect, so it'll still be done around the same time though, right? It's like, well, absolutely not. All our capacity went towards something else. And so if you have an interface to communicate that easily, it changes conversations, right? And it also helps, the main point I want to make is on the second one is that it communicates those changes to timeline way earlier on, right? Where as an engineer, and I've been in this boat where same idea kind of, Bart, right? Where I'm heads down, I'm just trying to build the thing that I committed to building and get it out the door. And I'm kind of burning myself, wearing myself thin to be able to get it out the door. And then it's like, oh crap, I thought I could get there, but we're a day out and I'm not going to get there. So I got to tell them, right? But if you can see us trending towards that and see our forecasting, the Cardagraph forecasting saying, hey, we're, 5 weeks out or 4 weeks out, and it's already pushing past that deadline, or that, that initial date that we committed to, that target date. Maybe me as a VP of sales, or me as a VP of product, need to go have a conversation 4 weeks before we actually are supposed to deliver, and say, hey, it looks like we're trending later. How are you doing? And I feel like it breaks down the barrier and allows an engineer or an engineering team to say, actually, we're really struggling. We're juggling too many things. What's the priority? What can we give more of our attention to, and what can we push off? Right? It really allows everyone to get on the same page. And like you said, it's a relief, right? It allows engineering teams to say, okay, we can get on the same page. No one's the bad guy. Get rid of that stress and that anxiety. And anyway, I think that's a huge benefit, and honestly, a selling point for us. Yeah, I don't know, Spencer. Do you ever feel like you use those to sell? I mean, I know we talk about defensibility with CTOs, but do you ever talk about kind of that I don't know, knowing that something's going to be behind or whatever way earlier on, or what are those conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about being proactive versus reactive, right? Oftentimes it's these teams that are very reactive, as like you mentioned, as we get to the last couple of days before a release is supposed to happen. And a big thing about Cardagraph that why we're solving this problem, how we're solving this problem, is being able to kind of pull the strings on the golden triangle, right? Of timelines, resources, and scope ahead of time. Before you get to that, target date or when you were supposed to ship. And so being able to be proactive and knowing as it's slipping, hey, Cardagraph's going to tell you when it's at risk. Keep slipping. Oh, Cardagraph's going to tell you that it needs attention, right? And so we're going to tell you this. Cardagraph is going to tell you this as early as possible, so that you don't have to be reactive and defensive as we get closer to the release date.
Totally. Yeah. And I love that you put it in that perspective of proactive versus reactive, right? And that's really what everyone wants. Everybody in a business wants to be able to say, I want to know as early on as possible about anything happening so that I can make a plan for it before everything, where the alternative is everything blew up and I got to react to it and I got to try to save face and I got to apologize to a customer or whatever it is. And that's huge, right? I mean, that's so huge. Another interesting benefit I think that I'm excited about is, is this idea that, and I actually had a conversation with the CTO yesterday about this, but one of his big draws to using Cardagraph in his workflow was he wanted to be able to say, hey, we can cut down on time of engineers spent on these planning and estimation meetings, right? And they still need to happen, right? I don't think that we're at a point where where we're trying to say completely get rid of estimation or planning, right? Those still need to happen, but we have actually seen situations where they're 2, 3, 4 hours a week in these planning and estimation conversations and meetings, whether they're formal or informal. And this CTO said, we do way too many of those. If we can have something that keeps us all on the same page about progress and what it takes to get certain things done, and then meet once a month or even just once a week would be a big improvement for them. He was like, I love that idea. Like it literally saves us money because engineers, are some of the most expensive employees at a company, and we're spending hours a week just talking, and they're not building, they're not trying to solve complex problems, with their teams and et cetera. And I think that's another really big one from the technical perspective that is a huge benefit to getting something like this. Because again, it kind of keeps everyone else at bay. It makes everyone else feel like, okay, I have a handle on where we're at, where our product delivery is at. If I feel confident, if I don't, if I need to start thinking about trade-offs, right? And so, yeah, anyway, I don't know, Bart, what do you think about that idea as far as the CTO? It's kind of a secondary benefit, right? Is this like less meetings? That's awesome, right? Everyone wants less meetings, but do you see that as a major, value prop for us?
Well, that's actually huge because we've done estimates, we've looked up numbers as well, we've talked to customers and potential customers, and the amount of time spent planning is obscene. Like there were some estimates that a programmer actually, a coder actually codes for like 40% of their time during the week. And the rest of the time they're helping somebody else, or they're doing this, or they're doing that. They're trying to plan, they're trying to reestimate. That's a lot of time not thinking, not being in the code, solving the problem. Now, if you're sitting there planning the solution, okay, let's architect this really well. That's as good as programming, right? But if you're estimating how long will that take us, well, everybody's like, well, okay, let's see how long that'll take. And then those estimates get turned into commitments, and we're back down the whole 300% thing again all of a sudden. And this isn't an excuse to say, oh, well, you'll still get it when you get it. Sure, engineering's going to do everything they can to ship. But the more time you give them, the reclaimed time from not having to meet so often will just cause, well, I don't know, maybe we can't think that hard every day, but I can only imagine that engineers, well, we've seen it. We've seen it in companies where they've reduced the time and their engineers can engineer more. Whether it's in the code or planning that, architecting it, it's just going to happen faster when you reclaim. I mean, even if we reclaim 10% of their time, to go from 40% to 50% productive in code, that's a pretty big jump. That's almost half a day. You know, you're getting a lot back. So I think over time it gets better, right? And even then, early, not involving engineering too deeply too early. We've talked about that notion where if you have engineers plan almost like a waterfall for things, but it's a small project, it's an epic or something like that, and they do too much planning early and they're not going to implement it for a year, well, they have to go to that depth to really get all of the current methodologies of estimation. They have to go to that detail to say, well, this is how we would implement, and this is how long it would take. And sure, you need to think through that, but it shouldn't take everybody to do that. You get a few key architects, they think about that, they go, oh, it's about this big because that's how big these other projects were. Okay, Cardagraph takes that, and now we know how long it'll take. And you involved one or two, maybe three engineers. Sure, they were expensive engineers, but you didn't also take everybody off from coding to come as a group, brainstorm this and figure out exactly how they're going to do it and get down to the minute estimations, which the resolution doesn't have to be that much anyway, and waste all that time. You just have just a few key people helping out. Now, as time gets closer, then the engineers need to come in and really flesh out all the details. And then the estimate will change, right? You'll add, oh, wait, that part's bigger than we thought 6 months ago. Or, oh, because we did these other projects in the meantime, that part's already done, so now it's smaller. You know, you just can't, if you estimate too deeply too early, you're gonna miss so much. Anyway, that's a long answer to the short thing. Yes, you're going to save. You're going to be more productive.
No, I love that, and I what I love about you sharing the longer answer is that I think that's the tendency, right? I think because everyone's trying to solve the problem of becoming more predictable in their delivery, but the only, oftentimes the only answer that people find or attempt is, okay, we got to just get way more detail then to really say, okay, you understand everything about the scope of what I'm asking you to build. You think it'll take you 2,347 minutes, right? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna hold you to that, right? And like you said, it's untenable, right? So it's better if we can get in a ballpark, right? Especially for annual planning, if we're that far out. Get into the ballpark based on our historical data. When it's something about this size, similar to this, it'll take us about that long. And then as you get closer, right, a few sprints out, then start to say, okay, what are the actual tasks? Let's actually, write the scope for this. Let's hopefully we have a design by then or something, a wireframe to know what we're building, and architects have been able to go through it. And so it's really that process, but early on, we need to be able to plan using data instead of this like, oh, it'll take us, that'll take us 3 months. And then every other project will also take us 2 months and 4 months and 6 months and 1 month and 3 sprints. And then, like you said, it brings you back to this, okay, we've planned to do 300% of our actual historical capacity. So great. What are we going to do now? So I love that.
Not only planning 300%, but planning it 6 times.
Right.
Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Let's come down, and when it's the right time to plan it, let's do that. Now, you mentioned design time. You mentioned architecting time. That's additional time that's often not tracked in Jira. But I'll just say this right now: you start tracking some of that in different workflows and things like that. Cardagraph can help you predict how long that'll take too.
Right.
We can apply it to all of these things being tracked through.
Totally.
through your ticketing system. So it's powerful. It's a powerful, simple, powerful Occam's razor kind of notion.
Totally agree. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I think we're about up on time. That was awesome, fun conversation. Obviously, we're all really passionate about these topics, and I think we could go for hours, honestly. And honestly, we basically record a podcast or do a podcast worth of conversation about product delivery every day anyway. So maybe we should just start recording some of those conversations. But no, yeah, thanks guys. I'm stoked about your perspectives and working with you guys. Hopefully, this provides some value to the people that see it. And yeah, we're excited about product delivery. If product delivery is something that you're trying to get a better handle on, reach out. We've thought about this problem deeply. We have a very simple but powerful solution to managing your product delivery, creating more predictability around delivering value to your customers, planning better. And if that's something that you're trying to get a better handle on, reach out. We'd love to talk to you. With that, thanks again, guys. Until next time, it's the Delivered Podcast by Cardagraph. And yeah, hope to see you again. Thanks.